What's up, crew? Welcome to Filming in Progress, the show that takes you backstage into the world of local businesses and the people who make them shine. Our guest today is Richard Campbell, the visionary behind 10Adventures. 10Adventures is redefining how we experience travel and the outdoors. Based in Calgary, Richard's lifelong passion for adventure drives his mission to inspire others to explore the world. Richard, thanks so much for being here.
I'm excited to chat. I never get to talk about myself, so it'll be fun.
This is the opportunity. Where are we?
We're at Lake Bonavista, so this little oasis in what used to be the edge of Calgary, and now is like every year getting a bit more central.
Love it. What first got you into or interested in the outdoors?
Growing up in Calgary, I think we all have memories going out camping in the Rocky Mountains, and as a kid, I never did hard stuff. We just go do like 1 hour walks in the mountains. Where I fell in love with the outdoors was my first big trip after university. I thought I'd go and see all these great cities in Europe. And I went to Chamonix. I don't even really know why. I think because there was a ski race there and I'd heard about it. I thought I'd go there for 1 day, and I stayed 7 days, and I changed my entire trip and kind of spent the next month just going through the Alps. And I realized I love doing these hard hikes. And went through Switzerland and Austria and then into Italy, and I kind of just fell in love with the outdoors. And the next year I moved to England, and I discovered you could do like multi-day walks and you can explore the countryside. And a few years later I learned about through hiking and spent a summer walking the length of the Pyrenees, and then spending another month in the Alps. And I just kind of accidentally became this guy who loves the outdoors. And it's one of those things, once you do one of these multi-day trips, it just kind of changes your life. It's the serenity and the disconnection. It's just so powerful that it's like a drug. You just can't stop doing it.
Yeah. What were you doing for work when you were finding your passion for the outdoors?
So I graduated from U of C with a finance degree. I thought I'd go work in banks. I had a job offer here in Calgary, but I had this wanderlust. And so I had friends who had gotten jobs in the UK. So I moved to London and did some temping. And then one day I had 2 job offers. One was for a big international merchant bank. One was for a startup. And I chose the startup because they could pay me sooner. London's super expensive and I was out of money. I'm like, I don't know, I'm going to pay rent or like feed myself. And so I spent the next 2.5 years working in a startup in central London. And on the weekends, I would go to the countryside and just kind of escape. I needed a bit of space, and just would go and just start walking. And once you're in London, travel to the Alps for skiing or hiking holidays in the summer also was a lot easier. So I kind of just the lifestyle of being in London and also having 4 weeks of vacation, it's just gave me so many opportunities to explore.
Spend all your money on adventures.
Well, luckily it's cheap. Often it's just you get a plane or a train and then just make your own way. So that was also nice because when you first graduate, you don't have very much money, especially living in London. So my disposable income was super low.
Right. When did you first decide that this passion for the outdoors could become a business for you?
I'm an accidental founder. So prior to 10Adventures, I was a chief operating officer of a consulting company here in Calgary. I joined when it was 18 people. It'd grown to 425 people, and I turned 40 and decided I want to, get back to, one of my loves, which is technology. But I hadn't worked there for over 12 years, and I thought, okay, I need to show I've still got some tech chops. So I started a website which was called 10 Hikes, basically as a portfolio piece to prove that, okay, I could still do technology. And like a lot of accidental founders, what I'd done really resonated with people, and people from around the world would come and want to be contributors. And that grew, and eventually people said, can you be my guide? We're going to be in the Amalfi Coast, we're going to be in Yosemite, we're going to be in Chamonix, can you be our guide? And I always thought, why are people asking me? I'm just some guy in Calgary doing this as a hobby. And then I realized, hang on, maybe I should see if I can help them, because they're obviously having trouble booking the trips. And so then I left where I was and started 10Adventures. I rebranded from 10 Hikes to 10Adventures, and that was the end of 2018, and we launched at the end of 2019 with this kind of new model of let's help people explore the world under their own power.
Amazing. You said guiding. So were you actually physically going there and guiding as well, or just kind of guiding the trip and helping out with the logistics side of things?
Yeah, I'm not a guide.
Yeah.
So they'd ask me. I say I can't do that. I don't have any of the certifications. So our model is to take my network of companies I've worked with, our team's network of people we've worked with, and then other people we meet as we go to travel the world that we think, hey, this company's really good. They've got some great guides. How can we work with them, because we know they're going to give this great experience to English speaking travelers. And so we kind of have a network of friends in 85 countries that we know, okay, these folks, they do great trips. And so for our friends, we're a way for them to find new customers in Canada, the US, UK, and Australia. And for all the people that are already using 10Adventures, it's a way to not have that risk of, is this trip going to suck? Like, is this company real? And so I'm not a guide. I still love to do all these trips, but I let the professionals do it. When you're out in the outdoors, there's a lot that can go wrong. So you want to have someone that's fully trained to take charge of your life.
Definitely. You said accidental founder, which I love. That's an increasing thing these days. Was there ever any indications that early in your life that you would become a founder or an entrepreneur?
It's funny. As a kid, I started working when I was 6 at my grandfather's farm every summer. When I'd come back, 8 or 9, we started doing a car wash business, and we picked up pine cones. I don't think that's a deal anymore, but we go around and pick up our neighbors' pine cones. So I was always kind of hustling to make money to buy video games and hockey cards. So I feel like there's something inside of me, and it's lots of people in Calgary. We all grew up with parents who are entrepreneurs and friends, their parents that were entrepreneurs. So early on, that was definitely something I was doing. When I moved to London and I started working for a startup, there were 2 employees. It was the founder and the CFO, or the finance guy. And we didn't even have a product. We had nothing. And so I just fell in love after working in kind of big corporates in Calgary during university. I fell in love with the freedom of, you have an idea, go and do it. And I remember my CEO said, oh, you're going to be a CEO before you're 30. Like, you just kind of get it. I wasn't a CEO before I was 30, but I just love the creative aspect. And so I think my next company was this small engineering firm that I was part of the team that helped grow it to become a really important company here in Calgary. And yeah, just the challenge of problems and change and solving problems, that's something that's always resonated with me. And part of turning 40 was I realized, okay, I've been a prime doer, I've been a leader. I want to be the guy who is like the founder. I want to be the guy who it's like, yeah, when it goes wrong, it's my fault. When it goes right, I've played a part in it, and I can kind of feel, oh yeah, like we did this together. So I feel this is the right step for me, but it was never conscious. Like, some people, they're able to, they have a plan for the next 20 years. I've never had that. I've always been like, let's try and just get the next 3 months, 6 months, 12 months. Let's focus on that. And then beyond that, it's hard to predict what the future is going to hold. So let's just see how life goes.
Yeah, love it. I always find, speaking to people, that they find that they always talk about the differences between working for somebody and then being your own boss, entrepreneur, founder, whatever the case may be. But nobody ever talks about the similarities or maybe the learnings that go from one to the next. Do you have any of those learnings that were extremely valuable when you were working for somebody else and then going into building your own business?
It's funny. I have a few friends, and we talk about how we can't not feel a sense of ownership. And it's actually a huge flaw, because people that can go to a job, and if they don't, they can mail it in, they can just treat it like a job. I would love to be able to have that. But the amount of care I had, when I was, out of university at the startup for doing a good job and making sure that we were doing well, it's the exact same as what I have right now. So I think, how I approach the job, it hasn't changed at all. I think what's nice is the evolution of what I've learned, from being an individual contributor, building products, to, building businesses and then leading businesses, and then going from nothing. There's so many mistakes I made, and, you learn from mistakes. And when you're around a company for a while, you see that what seems so obvious, you implement it and it's never right. And so I feel lucky that I've had all this experience, because now it's I can short circuit and get ahead of, I'm not going to make these 5 mistakes in terms of hiring or, managing payroll or invoicing. I've kind of learned all those while helping another company. And I always look at early founders, and I'm so impressed that they have the willingness to take this risk. But I also wish, man, I wish I could share like the 100 things that I screwed up, so that you don't make the same mistakes. Because a lot of the stuff, as I get older, I realize, oh, everybody else knows this. I was just, at 25 or 28 or 32 or 35, I didn't know all that. But it's so common. Like our mistakes are just every growing business almost makes the exact same mistakes.
Yeah, 100%. Well, and it's your first time doing something, you're always going to do that, right? But the more we can kind of have a great network around us and mentors, if you will, or whatever you want to call it, people that you look up to who have been there, done that is incredible. What are some of those things that you have learned that you would love to say to somebody who's starting a business?
So the first thing is it's all about people, and you hear lots of people talk about the company doesn't value me, which I think like a company is ultimately only the people. And so as a leader, like the people that are on your team that are choosing to give you their time, that's so, so valuable. And you have to honor that and recognize that and treat them right. And so, I treat people how I'd expect to be treated. Which means that often as the founder, I get treated the worst because, you're looking out for other people. So I think you've got to treat people really well and, really how you want to be treated. But the bigger aspect is how do you select the right people? And as an early stage founder, it's so hard to hire because no one knows who you are. And you think, Google puts an ad up and everyone knows who Google is and everyone wants to work there. When you're an early stage company, nobody knows that. And so you don't get the abundance of super qualified people. You have to learn how to identify talent who maybe doesn't fit the traditional mold, because the people who have done what you want at a comparable company, they're looking to go to a bigger company that has more stability. And part of my master's degree, I was taught by a kind of a legendary professor called Dan Cable, and his whole thing is like, how do you select the best people? And I looked at how the best companies hire, and so I looked at things like GE, their gas turbine division, or places like Facebook or Google, or even investment banks or consulting firms, and all of them do a job simulation. And so the best way to predict if someone's going to be good at their job is to have them do like the task that you want them to do. And it seems really obvious, but so many times we hire based on where they went to school, where they worked, what their job title was. But ultimately, we've all worked with people who have great titles and great companies, and they're actually not very good. And so I started doing job simulations almost 15 years ago, and literally overnight it changed who I brought on, because then interviews became entirely, do I want to spend 5 years working with this person? Like, would I want to go and go have dinner with this person, and like, do I really like this person? Because I know through the simulation they can do the job or they can't do the job. And that, at my last company, that essentially eliminated bad hires. We didn't have people that couldn't do the job or weren't fantastic at their job. We still had hires that maybe didn't work out, but it was more around the issue of it wasn't a good fit between the company and them. But it was just revolutionary to all of a sudden have great people. And for a small company, you're never going to get the perfect candidates. You have to find, is that person who worked overseas that you've never heard of the company, do they have the skills? Or is someone fresh out of school have the ability to do what you need? And then you're just interviewing based on fit. And yeah, if you have good people, you're going to work it out. You're going to make it work. A great team that works together is almost always going to win, I think.
Yeah, 100% agreed. It's all about people, and that simulation idea is incredible. I'm curious. Can you dive a little bit deeper? I think there's so much that people can learn from that, because every founder, every entrepreneur has been there and hired the wrong person who had all these great qualifications, that sort of thing. So how do you set up that simulation, and what do you look for in it?
Yeah, so the first thing is you've got to make sure it's not company or like industry specific information. So I know when we rolled this out across our entire company, and the first few times some of the leaders would be like, oh, tell me what the specifications are for this one specific client in this one specific facility. And like, that's not ability, that's knowledge, and knowledge can be learned really easily. So you want to find something that's generic that anyone who does this job should know. What we found is it's typically first or second year level university. So we, we're hiring, office professionals. So we'd ask, for an accounting role, reconcile, reconcile this, month-end financial statements. For an analytical role, interpret this data. And we'd put a bunch of mistakes in the data that was obviously false. And we'd give really easy interpretations. So it's not actually hard stuff. It's kind of like the foundational skills you need to do a job. And what we found is about 75% of people, irrespective of their skill level, their seniority, their experience, couldn't do these foundational tasks. And so you start worrying, if someone's a CFO, but they can't take 100 transactions and turn it into an income statement, what's going on here? Um, and so it really, like, it would almost immediately disqualify a huge portion because they can't do the foundational tasks. And then within that, you can say, okay, how well do some people do? Maybe only 2 or 3% will get 100%, but also because you can see their work, you can see maybe what they were thinking, or, you can see where they're weak or where they're strong. So if someone does really good on, 3 of the questions and bad on 1, you can bring them in and talk to them and understand how come, what happened with that problem, and understand, oh, maybe they just misinterpreted the question. Maybe English is a second language, and so how we wrote it wasn't clear. But it gives you a way to really dig in, and you can assess, oh, this person has all the basic skills. You can see how they output their work. In a lot of cases, we do it timed to see how quick they work, and we'd also do a lot of written aspects. So a lot of the tests would be like, write an email about what you found that you're going to have to send to the CEO of the company. Because so much of our communication has moved to asynchronous written communication. If someone's really bad at that, it really impacts like their performance. And so it just kind of changed everything. There was so much resistance. People said, I know if I hire, we were an engineering company. If I hire someone from Fluor, they're going to be good. I know a guy at Fluor. There are some people that aren't good there. Like they're a good company, they do good work, but there's still people who are not great performers who, have issues maybe, around their role. And so it changed. What was really interesting though, is it totally changed the diversity of our teams, because all of a sudden people who had names that were maybe, not Canadian names, they wouldn't be, oh, I don't, some managers would just discount people because of where they came from, their name, their education. This first step is we don't look at anything. It's just, are you currently, we were in Calgary, wanted people in Calgary. Are you in Calgary? We're going to give you this test. It should take you 45 minutes to an hour. So it hugely leveled the playing field, got rid of bias. And all of a sudden we were hiring a lot more younger people, a lot more women, a lot more people from visible minorities. And it was because they were being ignored by the wider, recruitment process, which is, oh, you haven't worked, you didn't go to UFC, so we're not going to hire you. You didn't work at a big prominent company, we're not going to hire you. And so there's so many people that were incredibly talented that just could never get that first step. And so a lot of our partners in our company came in, they'd never worked in our field, they'd never worked in our industry. They're just super smart, committed people that aced these tests, and we realized, oh, we found another diamond that everyone was ignoring because they didn't have the right school or background on their CV.
I love it. That's so awesome. Did you ever receive any? Well, first of all, was it ever paid, or was it just?
So it was never paid, although I do pay now in some situations.
Okay.
I use a freelancer tool when I want to find like just quick resources, and I've asked them to do a test because they are freelancers around the world. It's, and I can pay them really easily. So I do that in that case. We wouldn't do that, and we understand some people don't want to do it. What we heard most often is, I am so glad you let me do this. People were so happy because they never got a chance to demonstrate their skills. And so, we thought, okay, there's going to be people that are mad. It was usually later career people that would really object. Look at where I've worked. Look at what I've done. And they would, this is insulting. And, it is. But it's also like, it's a benefit. If you can demonstrate your skills and we can make sure we have the right fit beforehand, you're not going to leave your job to join us, which it may not work out. Like, if you're going to leave a job, I want to make as close to 100% that it's going to be a great situation. You're going to love it. You're going to fit in. You're going to have all the right skills. If we just hire you based on what we talk about, like, it might be a failure. And like, everyone can talk about their job. Like, you do something for 2,000 hours a year. Like, how can you not be able to discuss at a very high level what that is? Like, talking about your job is like the easiest thing in the world. The people that fail that are really really struggle with their job. If you can't talk about what you do every day of the week for 50 weeks a year, it's such a low barrier to assess if someone has the skills. So yeah, we were surprised. People actually really liked it, even when they weren't selected. When they were selected, they liked it. And their attitude towards the company, like we participated in a lot of engagement surveys. New employees were super, super engaged. They thought they were joining a team of superstars. They felt, hey, I just got through 300 people. I'm the best. I must be working with the best as well. And so people coming in expecting to be part of a great team, expecting that they can contribute. We were a 6-time winner of one of the top 50 places to work in Canada. I think part of it was down to everyone joining really felt like they were joining like the all-star team.
Yeah. Well, I think it makes perfect sense, right? Like you're adding a little bit of a barrier, but at the same time, it's ensuring that there is alignment across the board from the get-go. And I think that's so underrated, because too many people will leave their jobs too early, or determine in the first month or couple weeks or whatever the case may be that they're not a good fit for the role, and then both parties have wasted resources.
Yeah, it's a big responsibility as an employer. People are paying their mortgage, they've paying for, raising their family. If you hire someone that doesn't work out for either side, that's a huge, huge mistake. It's not a small mistake. They might be able to, they might leave the company and not have another job lined up. They have an issue on their CV of, oh, well, you only worked there for 4 months. And so the more we can do to make sure that we're not going to mess with people's lives and their livelihood, I think it's really important. And I always get upset when you hear of people just hiring willy-nilly, because it might be just a piece of paper or something for you as a company, but for that person, like, you can impact their life significantly if you don't take it seriously, and you demob somebody after 2 or 3 months. Like, that's such a horrible thing to have happen, that they just seem to spend a bit more time and make the right decision.
100%. That responsibility goes both ways, right?
Yeah.
Absolutely. Is your team mostly remote now?
We are entirely remote. When I left my last job, one of the things was I had 3 young kids, and I was leaving work at 7:30 every morning. They'd been up for half an hour, but I was rushed. You're having a shower, you're eating your porridge, you're getting your suit on, you give them each a kiss. I was getting home at 5:30, and little kids, they get cranky by then. So I was coming home. My wife was a bit frantic. The kids were screaming, and we put them to bed at 7. So we'd eat, bath, and put them to bed. And I'm not super money oriented. Like, money's nice, but it's not the number one drive for me. And so I'm just like, every day I'm like, this is not the right trade-off, because I have these little kids that I'm not seeing, and I really want to have kids, and I can't be a great dad. I'm a dad on weekends. And so when I decided, okay, I want to go do 10 Adventures, part of it was also, I want to do it remotely. I think teams can work really effectively remotely. This was back in 2018, when it didn't have as many tools as we have now, but I just felt like I want to be available, that when I need a break in the office, you go to the break room and you have a coffee with somebody, and it's a naive little chat, but it's kind of not as meaningful as going downstairs and wrestling with your kids, or going outside and just chatting with them for 10 minutes. And so I wanted my downtime not to be just sitting at a desk. I want to be able to engage with my kids, and I'm able to walk my kids to school. I'm able to be there and pick them up if my wife needs me. And so just being able to have that flexibility, it's so rewarding. And I know the whole team, they say the same thing. Like, one of the guys in Toronto, we're saving like an hour and a half to 2 hours of his day every single day. And so his parents, have just moved in with him, so he can help take care of his parents. He can be there with his wife, and if you can make it work, it's just such a better lifestyle for everyone in your team. The hard part is there's some things that are really hard to do remotely. And so we have a meetup once or twice a year where we all get together and talk about these big picture issues. It's fun to get to know people. And, I don't think you can go 100% remote, but, outside of these meetups, we're almost completely remote, and, it's working really well for us. I will say we have had a couple people, they hated working remote. And so I always assume everyone loves it. They really struggled. They were both in kind of like rural locations. And so they would just sit, in this rural property, no one around all day, especially in winter. They'd finish, it would be dark. They were younger as well. I think when I was younger, I loved the social aspect, especially in London, where you kind of, your best friends become your workmates. And so being remote does have its challenges. And so it's useful to think, like, before you do it, is it going to be the right fit for me? Because you got to motivate yourself. You got to, be comfortable not talking with people all the time. You almost have to have like a good network outside of work, so you can go do spin classes after work, go see your friends for dinner, because there's none of that like social interaction you get in an office.
Definitely. Do you think it's mostly based around kind of the individual's values and how they operate, or is it more, or is it industry relevant, or what are some of those factors that make a difference on when works and when doesn't work to have kind of a remote culture?
Yeah, so I think if I were to go to so I'm lucky. I'm fairly introverted, and I have a wife and 3 kids. So I have and my parents live nearby. So I have all the social aspect I need just with like my little network, my little tribe of 7 of us. So I'm not looking to, I don't need more social interaction because I'm kind of introverted. If I didn't have that group, I think it'd be really lonely, and I probably would want more of a social interaction. Um, but if you like a lot of social interaction, but you've got a great network of friends or family nearby, and you can get that, you can go work out with your friends at lunch, or you can do stuff in the evenings, then I think that can work as well in remote. I think where it struggles is if you have no social interaction, and that's something you want, even if you're super introverted, you need some sort of social interaction. Um, so I think that's one big aspect. And the second thing is just motivation. Like I've grown up on a farm. You don't have a choice. The work needs to be done, and so somehow I've just work needs to be done, and it's not. I don't need motivation. It's just my entire career. I've been the guy that was in there early and staying late, so I don't struggle with that. But I know some people. Like we had one person, and they asked, "Can you please just tell me what I have to do every day? Like I can't get it done unless someone makes me do it." And we did that, and the person was a really talented person, but part of me thought, "Oh, this is not the right situation because it's a lot of effort to say, okay, do these 6 things today." Where that individual ended up moving into an office environment in kind of as she said, not the most sexy industry, but she just needed to have that environment where she's around people, and it was just she couldn't slack off. When you're in an office, you can't just sit in your living room watching The Price is Right all day. You have somebody going by your desk making sure stuff's happening. So I think those are probably the two biggest aspects. Time zone is also something that's tough. I have a friend that works with a European company with offices in India. So like he has to be up at like 2 or 3 in the morning every day, and that impacts his lifestyle. In his case, he likes it. He can spend the afternoons with his family. He can go to the gym after everyone stopped working. So he's made it work. But I know at the start it was kind of challenging just to change our daily 9 to 5 to a 2 to noon.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, especially with meetings and that sort of thing. When you're a close knit team and you're working close together on a lot of different projects, those can be challenges. I'm curious about culture. That's one of the things that people find, through conversation that it's one of the harder things to upkeep when you're all remote. And I know you said that you do 2 meetups a year, which is incredible. But how do you maintain that culture? Do you do team meetings? Do you do virtual events? What does that look like?
So I'm an information share. I like to share information. So I think part of our culture is just down to being really transparent with the team. So we do a daily stand-up. It's just like 5 minutes. Most of the time it's what are you working on? Where are you stuck? But every Friday, like what are you proud of? Like what have you done that makes you proud? We also do a weekly meeting where I just share here's the numbers from the last week and here's what we're all kind of the bigger picture. We then do a monthly review, which is again kind of big picture, and then we do a quarterly review. So these are all short meetings, but we have all these touch points where we can just talk about what we're working on, and over time, people are going on holiday, so you have these kind of like team discussions. So that kind of keeps us connected on a daily, weekly, monthly basis. What's interesting is at our last meetup, kind of one of the discussions, and so we had 2 people who hadn't been to one before, and they're like, I feel like I know all of you. I've never met you. And I would never have done a trip like this with my past companies. Like this is kind of weird. We had a beautiful cottage in Muskoka. It was like March or February. We all went there. We're in a small cottage for 4 days. It's kind of weird to be that close with your workmates, especially if you've never met them. But the 2 people who had never come, they said, I feel like I know all you, and this feels like we're friends and not workmates. And I think it's partially we get to know each other every day in these short bursts. I think as well, just hiring people. I have a no assholes. I have a bunch of rules on our website who we want to hire and who we don't. But I want to hire people I genuinely like, and I'm interested in their lives, and they're kind of interested in other people's lives as well. So we have a bunch of people who are interesting people who are interested in each other, and so we just have a different relationship from. Like I remember in my last company, we did this big celebration. We all went to, I think it was the Banff Springs. So this incredible thing, you think we're gonna have this great time, we're gonna get to know each other. And for a bunch of the people, we never saw them. They were in their room, they were doing something else. And we came back, we said, we spent all this money and this big celebration, and we kind of had no team building. We went out for beers at night, but beers are kind of team building, but they're kind of not. And I remember thinking what happened? How come this didn't work? And here we are, this small company, and just in a cabin, we were playing board games. going for walks, and it worked really well. So I think there's some aspect just of, we all kind of fit together and understand each other.
Definitely. Do you think that your industry just like naturally attracts the right people based on, the outdoors and passion for adventure and that sort of thing?
So in our team, only one person has ever worked in travel, including myself. I'd never worked in travel. And she'd done it at the very start of her career for, I think, a year or two. So everyone from our team is outside of travel. But the travel industry, especially adventure travel, are the most interesting people I've ever met. I go to trade shows and I just meet people that inspire me. They're PhDs that had been research scientists that decided they want to, do bike tours to show where they live to people. There's people that have given up great careers as lawyers, as consultants, as whatever, they're so passionate about the outdoors. They're so passionate about where they are. They want to help people. And so I go to these trade shows and I just think these are the nicest people. I remember my very first trade show was in Banff in 2018. And I remember I think I wrote to like the head of the trade organization. I found my tribe. Like, I just feel so right with this group of people because they all, I mentioned before we started, like authenticity, they're all living a life that's right for them. They're all taking less money because travel is like not how you make millions of dollars because people are really price sensitive. So it's people that are giving up a lot to do something they're really passionate about. So it is a really special industry. And there's something about people that want to help people that is, with me, connects with me really, really deeply. Like, these are kind people that are doing their best. And, just a couple of days ago, we had a guest on a bike trip and she was hit by a car. The driver drove off. This is in Europe. She got the license plate. The bike was totaled. And, I came in and she'd left a message and I thought, oh geez. I called, the team that was helping her in Europe. They were working on it, within about 40 minutes, the bike had been taken away. She was in a taxi. She wasn't injured. They got a new bike for her next day. They went over and above everything to try and just help her. And I just thought, this is incredible. Like, this is, what we would do if it was ourselves. But so often in travel, you hear of airlines that don't care. You go, they've split up you and your kids on a flight. They don't care. You should have bought this beforehand. You get to a hotel, they don't have the right room. The hotel doesn't care. But in adventure travel, I think it's staffed predominantly by people who really, really care about the people, about the experience. They understand how important these vacations are. We only have a few weeks to go on vacation. It's the best weeks of our year. And so at least the people I work with are people that care deeply about those few weeks and making these incredible memories.
Why do you think that is? Why do you think that, this industry attracts the right people? Because like you mentioned, these huge airlines and things like that, you hear horror stories all the time.
So the experience of going on an adventure trip, so I'm talking like a walking holiday. This is not hardcore. Going on an e-bike trip, going sailing, you kind of disconnect from the world. Your life gets really, really simple. So when you go to a city break in Europe, you're constantly in line, you're rushing around, you're trying to meet up and do things. So you have all these things. It's like work. When you go on a walking trip, you have like wake up, eat, walk. You're in a new village. Check your hotel, your mountain hut, eat, go to bed. And I think that simplicity is really important for us to have time to reflect on our life, but also just to kind of like, disconnect and like clear our brains. And once you do this once, it's just so powerful, the experience. And so I think the people that are in adventure travel recognize the power of what they're doing, how they're helping people, and they care deeply about it. Whereas going, on an airline, the flight is never the part that's great. Going to a hotel, it's never the part that's great. Going to a city break in Europe, I love that. It's fun, but it's not the same experience of coming back with like your mental, abilities fully recharged. It's a fun. It's like a new experience. Going down to Mexico for a beach holiday, it's really nice, but you're kind of not coming back recharged the same way you do. And it sounds crazy, but go ride your bike for a week in Europe. You're going to come back feeling better than you were when you started. It doesn't sound like that should be the case, but it is. Mm-hmm. You're just disconnecting, simplification. We don't, spending time in nature with fresh air. It just changes people. And so I think everyone involved in this, segment of travel, we just realize how important it is, and we want to do our best.
Yeah, so important, and you're absolutely right. For those who have kind of gone on an adventure trip and biked or hiked or walked or whatever the case may be for their vacation versus a beach vacation on Mexico, which is nothing wrong with that, to each their own, obviously. But why do you think that is? Is there science behind it, or why is it that you come back more fulfilled or maybe more recharged when you're actually doing more activity?
Yeah, so there's tons of science coming out. I interviewed a author on my podcast, and she had a comment: if we could bottle the outdoors, like being active in the outdoors, and put it in a pill, it'd be the number one most prescribed pill because it has a huge impact. So just being active increase a bunch of hormones in your body that connote that bring happiness, open up pathways in your brain between different parts of your brain. Being outdoors in fresh air is highly correlated. All the studies that show it makes you happy. There's studies that with hiking and walking specifically, it's very similar when you aren't talking. It's very similar to meditation. And so I always think when I hike, when I'm on my own, I might just count to 100 like for 4 hours straight. And that's a bit like a 4-hour meditation. And like I can only do about 10 minutes. If I come out here in the dock, I can do about 10 minutes, but I can, if I'm walking on my own, do it for 4 hours. So imagine the impact of that much meditation. I think there's also the aspect of when you're doing one of these experiences, you're with someone you care about usually. And so we specialize in private trips, whether they're self-guided or guided. So you're with the people you love most usually. And so to have 8 hours a day beside someone, you go through the superficial conversations pretty quick and you touch, topics that you never talk about before. And because you're walking side by side or you're cycling and your mind has all these different pathways opening up, you have these really, really deep conversations you never have. And so there's all the scientific benefits, but there's also just connecting with people you love in a way you can't. Like most times we go and meet friends for dinner and okay, for 2 hours, you kind of don't have those deep conversations, but 7 days on the Camino, you're going to have those deep conversations. 7 days cycling in Vietnam, you're going to have those deep conversations, and you're also going to have the shared experiences. So you have something to talk about all the time. Can you believe what we just ate? Can you believe what we just saw? Can you believe that church? Or, look at this weird drink. You have all these shared experiences, and those then finally translate to the stories you tell when you come together for dinner or, or holidays. They're the photos that go on your wall, and they're the memories that you reflect upon that bring a smile to your face. And so I think they're so unique that it's just so much more powerful. A beach vacation, we do it regularly. I like just sitting on a beach and swimming, but they all kind of merge into the same. If you're in Cancun at one hotel or Puerto Vallarta in another or Costa Rica in a third, they're a little bit different, but it's kind of the same experience, the same views, the same, foods kind of, and you don't have that deep connection, which I think makes these trips just so different.
Definitely. And I think there's something, and you touched on it, but there's something about that shared experience and struggle too, right? When you're going out for dinner, you're not going to experience anything that's too complicated. Same with on a beach for the most part, right? Generally speaking. Whereas if, you're on a bike trip and you get hit by a truck or whatever the case may be, there's a lot more, you bond more over those things too, right? So,
I think that's a really good point. I hadn't thought about that, but every 3 months I start talking to a bunch of our customers. And one that comes out is they love these trips for the challenge. They do things they don't think they can do. I don't know if I can ride for 7 days in Europe. I don't know if I can walk 20 kilometers a day. And so they want that challenge. When you're talking, it also made me think, when my wife and I got married, we walked across the Alps for a summer to raise money to build schools in Nepal. And I went into that. I was the outdoors person. My wife had never really done anything outdoors. And I thought, I'm in charge here. But I had real bad problems with my feet. I remember one day, we were a pass, and I said, I don't think I can walk down. I don't think I can walk anymore. And my backpack was huge and hers was small. And she started offloading my pack into hers, and her pack was overflowing, stuff was attached to the side. And then we got down, and I couldn't have done it without her. But that was the first time I kind of gave up responsibility. And I said, oh yeah, it's not me and you, it's us. And so I think there's lots of situations where you have these things where you have to be vulnerable with other people because it's hard. Even if you're in great shape, it's still really, really hard. Some days are tougher than others. And when you learn to be vulnerable with people you care about, that's how you make these great connections.
Couldn't agree more. And I think that translates into business too. And that's probably why, I'm assuming that's probably why your team is so strong too. When you do these outdoor adventures together as a team, you're experiencing those just like you would a relationship, two friends going for a hike or whatever the case, right? Yeah.
Yeah,
Love it.
I agree.
Yeah, you talked a little bit about simplicity in there, and I love that idea. And I think these days, especially in business, things are just too complicated, or we complicate things too much. So you were talking specifically about not about business, but do you translate that simplicity into your business and how you make decisions and deal with handles?
Kind of. So what we try and do is focus on getting a few things done every week, every 3 week sprint, every quarter. And so we try and simplify and say, let's just work on these few things. I think one of my downsides, every downside's a positive. I have lots of ideas. And so if I go back, 3 or 4 years ago, I had here's 100 ideas, and it was really unclear which one should we be working on. And one of our board advisors is from Google. He's like, this is how, just manage your sprints. And it was more around tech, but I found out it's actually really valuable for our entire business. And so you take a quarterly plan, you break that down into 4 3-week sprints. You have 1 week left over to catch up or, do bug fix or whatever. And then each 3 weeks, just focus on what you want to do that 1 week. And even more on that one day, just focus on what you want to do that one day. And by simplifying the noise and saying, yeah, just if all you get done this week is this one task, that's great. Because what was happening before is we were kind of getting 60% done on 12 tasks. And so actually what happened, it was difficult for team members to prioritize and working a little bit on everything each day, but also it's taking forever to get stuff done. So I've never thought about simplification in work, but I think that is actually a big aspect, is make it really clear for each person the one thing they have to get done that day or that week or that sprint. And for us, put stuff live every week. Get something tangible that we've done that we can say, yeah, we did that this week. And it just feels good to knock stuff off. So I guess we have done that. I didn't even realize it.
I love it. It's a great approach. And I think realistically, every individual, one of the things that we've learned in business is every individual will break down that single task into multiple other tasks that needs to get done to get that thing done, right? But ultimately, you're simplifying in order to create those steps and
that's the last step. So we actually do that. So break down a week task into, maybe it's 50 tasks. What we found is anything over 4 hours is that's where things get, we have problems. And so it's how do you break that task down further and further? And kind of what we try and do is say no subtask can be more than 4 hours. So if it's it's 8 hours to do something, that's got to be 2 4-hour tasks, or maybe it's 4 2-hour tasks. But that really helps understand the scope as well. And a lot of times we say, oh, this is 8 hours. But when you start breaking it down, it's oh, wait, there's way more to this than I thought. So even simplification and doing that, it also makes it easier to understand what the task is and understand where connections are or where challenges may lay.
100%. And I think also that, breaking that down into smaller elements will also, create a little bit of a reward after that 4-hour period or that 2-hour period or whatever, so that, you're not grinding away at something for a week and feeling no sense of accomplishment.
Yeah. Right? I love that feeling. Oh, we did this. I love that little check mark. I'm still like a little kid with your little star on the wall. When I get something done, I have a little list every day. It's oh yeah, highlight it green, life is good.
Oh, I'm the same way. There's so much, literature and that sort of thing saying don't make to-do lists, but I'm a to-do list guy. So you talked a bit in there, something I'm curious about, which is transparency with your team and your numbers and those sort of things. And there's kind of 2 schools of thought in that stream in business. And I'm curious, why do you choose to share your numbers with your team?
It just feels, so the honest truth, I actually don't know, other than it feels right. It feels like that's something I'd want to know. Thinking back to my last company, there was an aspect where, we were, I think 37 partners who owned parts of the business. We had 425 staff. People kind of want to know what's going on in the company. And so we couldn't be as transparent as I'm being right now, but we worked hard to, let's share the numbers every month, every quarter. Let's produce reports that people can read. Because I think if people don't know what's going on, or they don't understand that, they start inventing kind of false narratives. So I think maybe starting this was probably I think this is the right thing to do. Also, everyone's a really important contributor. So for them to know how to do their job best, they got to know what everyone else is doing. They got to know what our big corporate goals are for a quarter. They they want to see the numbers to see, hey, did what we do work or did it not work? And so to measure success, often it's how many bookings did we get? How many sales? What's the web traffic? What's the feedback? What's our NPS score? Sharing all that. Some weeks it's great, some weeks it's not great. It's oh, well, this one kind of sucked. But I think it's just, if you know all that, you can do your job better. Mm-hmm. It may not work when we're 200 people or 500 people, but right now with our small team, it works really well.
Yeah, I like that. I think sometimes it can be given I think it really depends on the person, right? Like if your numbers are, maybe they're down that week, and then it can act as a motivation for some people, whereas some people it might be like, oh no, and then they fall into this rut of, what do I do differently, right? So, curious, business ownership and being a founder and that sort of thing, probably especially remote, it can be lonely. You're the one taking on all those decisions. You're taking on the responsibility of your entire team, all of those different things. Do you ever feel that, or is that not a factor for you?
Yeah. So when I first started, I have a network of people I went to school with, or I've worked with, or just friends, and I really tapped that network for questions, because a lot of the stuff I was dealing in early days was pretty standard stuff. Oh, how did you solve this in your business? But at a certain point, I realized the answers that someone who didn't know the business, or didn't the easy problems were solved, and kind of like I was getting superficial answers. And then I found a program here in Calgary called the Venture Mentoring Association, VMSA, I don't know, Venture Mentoring Services of Alberta, something like that. And what they do is they pair senior business leaders with startups, typically tech startups. And so that was really, really valuable, to bring mentors in who, they have no fiduciary duty. They actually just want to help. And for them, they're super successful, and they're, all of them are interested in the outdoors. And so that's been a real resource to help me, deal with some of these problems. The other thing is I've done some tech accelerators here in town, one of which, the 500 Global Accelerator, brought in a bunch of mentors that specifically specialize in scaling companies. And so that's been hugely, hugely beneficial to kind of understand, oh, what are the steps to get from $1 million to 10 million in revenue? It's not rocket science. There's just 500 has done that 1,000 times, probably more, probably 10,000 times. And their playbook is like, oh, this is how I do all these things, or here's a playbook to do it. So I think that's really helped. I'm really lucky. I've got a great wife. I have wonderful kids. Also, I've always been someone who just kind of does what I think is right. So when I first graduated university, I just went to Europe on my own. I want to go do that. And when I spent a summer in Europe, I quit my job and I just went hiking and did all these through hikes on my own, kind of never done that. I didn't think, oh, I should get someone else to do this with. It's just kind of like, I want to do it. My friends don't want to do it, so I'm just going to go do it myself. So I feel like I'm comfortable doing stuff on my own. I know I did a test for adversity quotient, and so I was the 99th percentile. So this was in my master's, and she's like, oh, you'd be really good working in startups because there's just all these things that go wrong, or things, all this change. So I think that helps as well, that when things go bad, I don't get too down. When things go good, I don't get too up, because I know they're eventually going to go down. And growing up in Calgary, things go down every 7 or 8 years. And through my family, you realize, all of a sudden dad doesn't have any work. Or, when he was a business owner, all of a sudden he isn't, he tells us he's not, there's work, but all the employees are getting paid, not him. So you realize that firsthand. So you realize, okay, when things are good, they're going to go bad again. When the bad things come, good things are going to happen again. And don't get too focused on the short term, focus on the long term.
Yeah, 100% cruise on neutral, right? Do you have a process for when things don't go right? Maybe something happens, maybe the site goes down, something like that. Do you have a process that you kind of follow to ensure that you're, staying on track or doing the right thing?
Yeah, so a lot of the things that, when things go wrong, it's usually the unpredictable things. So all the, website going down, we've got a team of DevOps engineers that can, they're on 24/7. They'll revert to a previous version or get other servers spun up in minutes. Those things, the nice thing is you get to a certain size, you don't have those urgent issues that are oh shit, the site's down. I don't know how to do this. And you're trying to call your main dev who's on holiday or something. So the stuff that comes up that's kind of urgent is a guest getting hit by a car. And, luckily with us, we've got local teams every country we operate in. They're the ones that can handle that. But sometimes, you got to step in and get involved, or they want to talk to you. So I kind of get involved in those things. The hardest thing is where you have a problem and it's you can't really solve it. Mm-hmm. And so we have had problems where it's you just got to say, okay, how can we solve this? Let's think of some ideas, and you just roll through them. We have one problem we're working on. We're rolling through it. We've probably done 10 or 15 ideas. We think now we might know finally what the right idea is, but we thought that 2 or 3 times already. But all you can do is you come up with a hypothesis, test it. If it works, great. If it doesn't work, move on. Plan A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J, K, which is a little bit like traveling. Like when you're in the mountains, I didn't realize there was going to be snow on this pass. What are we going to do? Well, we can go back. We can go through, challenging terrain. We can look on a map and see if there's other terrain. When you're traveling, overseas, the bus has already left. The train doesn't run. My hotel lost my booking. There's all these things you have to kind of deal with, all these things that could go wrong. And you kind of have to figure things out. I think that's actually the fun part. Like a stable business is actually kind of boring for me, but a business that's changing, that has problems, that's what drives me and is really exciting for me.
100%. What fulfills you about what you do every day?
So I think helping people, like I know the whole team, it's like to know that we are helping people, like make them like one of the happiest times of their year. There's no jobs that you get to do that. Probably for doctors, like if you work, there's probably some doctor professions where you're quite often helping people, deliver babies or, successfully deal with injuries. I bet you that's really rewarding, but I couldn't take the downside when things go wrong. But most business jobs were not like really impacting people's lives. And so that's, I think, just knowing you're helping people is really, really rewarding. Getting photos or, getting people to send a video in or seeing a Google review is like, oh, we really helped that person. That's rewarding. And then in a startup, there's always lots of problems, always things to change. And in the growth of a company as well, like you do something once and then 2 years later, you need to do it again. And you realize, oh, this is how that didn't scale. And the scaling side where we're in right now, it's really fun because all the things we set up, 2, 3, 4 years ago, they're all like, oh, they don't really work anymore. And so solving that's great. And then for me personally, I really like when like team members can identify a problem, bring a solution and it works. Like for me, that's like harnessing the, it's exponentially harnessing like the power. So one of our team members said, we need to get a CRM. We'd been doing everything kind of like with Excel sheets and a bunch of different tools. And he implemented it and it like has totally changed our business. Last year we said we need to service our bookings and our payments better. And so him and 2 other members worked at how do we actually now, take this infrastructure and expand it to make our processes better, make it, more reliable. And so for me, just to come in for a meeting and be like, holy crow, like look at how much better this is than what we had before. And like, that's super, super satisfying because I didn't have to do anything. Like we made things better and I didn't have to do anything. That's like super, super, super joyful time for me.
That's when you know you have the right people, right? Things
Yeah,
are
exactly.
improving and happening and you wouldn't have even thought of that, right? So you mentioned Google reviews in there, and reviews in general are important for any business, but we've all experienced, or, actually for travel specifically, that's kind of one of the first things people do, right? Have you ever had an experience with like, a bad review or any stories to tell on that front?
So things go wrong in travel all the time. I think how you're judged is how you respond to that. We had an instance where the team in one of the countries forgot to book the hotels. And it was a really important trip. There was a couple of hotels they really wanted to stay at. They're, very beautiful hotels and beautiful place, and they forgot. And so I myself got involved and said, like, we got to sort this out. And the customer was upset, but, in 3 days with lots of back and forth, we got it sorted out. And it wasn't exactly what they want, but they recognized how important it was that, to know where I just went in and like stick handled this. And they're satisfied with what happens. And I think you learn a lot when things go wrong. And that's like, that's what you can really find out. And some of our Google reviews even say like, well, this happened, but I was really happy with how it happened. We have a 4.9 on Google. I think we have 1.3, and it was a guy, his mountain bike tire blew. And I was just like, oh no, why did you give us a 3? Like, we can't control that. But the hard part with all reviews is they can be faked. And we've gone to restaurants here in town. We go all the time. It's like, this restaurant was terrible. And then it's like, oh, but these can be faked. Our reviews, we've never faked a Google review. They're all legitimate. You can see there's real people with their photos. But what we did is like, we really want to show how much we care. So we went out to our customers and said, hey, like, if you had a good time, do you just want to record a video and just send it in? And like, just like to share your experience. I was hoping we'd get 6 of them. We got, I think, 107.
Oh, wow.
And so on our site, there's a page. You can see all of these videos from people around the world. You know, it's not AI. They were recorded before you even had this AI gen, but you can see like they've got normal fingers and everything. And I think that's like, it's really hard to tell if reviews are real. And so we take a lot of effort to say, you know, these are real. This is what we're trying to do. This is how much we care about your trips. And yeah, the whole team was like, what is going on? Like people just keep submitting reviews. So I think that's really a testament to what we're trying to do. And I know when people join or, you know, investors look, they're like, I can't believe people are recording like videos. Like I've never recorded a video for anything I've used. I couldn't imagine it. And I'm just thankful that, you know, people feel we've done such a good job that they were willing to do that.
Definitely. So important, so important. You mentioned AI in there, and I'm curious, does that affect your industry, or how is it affecting your industry currently?
So we've kind of seen, you know, before there was AI, there was like content farms. And so what a content farm is people are writing blogs on things they don't know just to get to the top of Google. Mm-hmm. And they're trying to sell stuff usually. They're trying to sell, you know, clothes or trips or, you know, equipment. And so what you'll find is they'll just get someone who's, you know, probably never done the activity, never been to the places. They read the top 5 things on Google and they just rate it slightly differently. And so what was happening is you were seeing that everything on Google was pushing people to the same places. You know, you'll see it here in the Rockies. Lake Louise and Moraine Lake in a period of 6 years have gone from you could drive up almost any time and get a parking spot to you can't even get to Moraine Lake, and you got to now get to Lake Louise. Someone said it's 6 a.m. now or 5 a.m. and you got to pay $20. But this is happening everywhere. The content was all kind of junk content, and it was just recycling the same stuff again and again and again. What's happening with AI is they're doing the same thing on a bigger scale. And so if you just want to go to these 5 or 10 places that everyone tells you about, then I think AI is going to be really good at that. Where it's not going to be very good at is getting to the places that aren't these 5 or 10 things. And our trips invariably don't go to those 5 or 10 things. A good example is if you want to walk from Lake Louise to Banff, that's actually really complex. And there's a lot of decision making. You know, there's a backcountry network of sites. Which route do you take? When do you go? You know, there's lots of questions. AI is going to be really bad at that. If you want to go and do 3 days in Banff, eventually it'll be good. I used one a couple months ago, and it had me going to every night going to the Banff Center to watch a show, although there's not shows at the Banff Center every night. It had me going to the Maple Leaf, which is a nice restaurant, twice for dinner in 3 days. At one point, it sent me at 9 a.m. to Lake Louise to go skiing, but it had to come back at 11. So it's 45 minutes to Lake Louise to get out of your car to the ski lift. You can't even go up. So it was like, this is stupid. Like it's like the worst itinerary you can think of. It will get better. Like I know AI is going to improve. The question is, how good will it be for people that want to do more than just the really common stuff? Mm-hmm. And I think that'll be a long way down the road. And even like 10 or 15 years from now, having a local that can tell you like really what's going on and isn't relying on, you know, ingesting all this data, like one person you trust is always going to be better than, you know, one person that lives in the place that you trust, that's knowledgeable, is always going to be better than like ingesting a million people's thoughts.
Right.
Because lots of people are idiots. And
totally.
like, you know, a lot of the content's bad. A lot of the people that, you know, they're different. And so, especially for our niche, like, you know, we're these, you know, the small niche of like adventure travel, walking tours, bike tours. It's almost $1 trillion industry. It's huge, but it's so unique from the rest of travel that it kind of like what works there doesn't work here.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and the reality is there's lots of experience that is personal only, and it's never been online. You know, you go somewhere remote or whatever the case, and maybe nobody's talked about that experience online, so no, the AI can't learn from it. So you really do need that human touch. Right?
Yeah, and there's even like the personal factor. Like some hikes in the Rockies are going to be great if you're a strong hiker, but they're going to be horrible if you're a weak hiker. And conversely, if you're a weak hiker, there's certain experiences that are going to be wonderful. And so just trying to understand, like, who are you? That again, talking to someone who's knowledgeable, who can ask you some questions and understand, oh yeah, you're a pretty good hiker, a pretty good backpacker. This is what you want to do versus, oh, you're new to this, or you've got, you know, mobility issues. I'm going to totally change that. AI is going to struggle to personalize really well. It's going to do the mass market really well. I think personalized and custom and, you know, these small areas, I think it's really going to struggle.
Mm-hmm. What does success look like to you?
Geez, that's my mentors keep asking, what's success for me? I should know that. Success right now is being a great dad and a great husband. Like that's really what's my focus. My oldest, I've got 5 more years before he goes away to university, or is at the age to do that. And so it's just being there for them. In terms of 10 Adventures, I think just continuing like this continued growth, doing more each year, helping more people, getting good feedback. This doesn't have to be $1 billion unicorn. I'd be really happy if it just, there's a team of 15 or 20 of us that are helping people have these great trips. That'd be a great outcome for me. Like, I know everyone wants to become the biggest company ever. If that happens, it's fun. Like going from 2 million to 100 million in revenues, like we did my last company, it was fun. Going from nothing to selling we sold for 330 million USD, the startup in the UK, that was fun. Like it's kind of fun to have that kind of success. But that's kind of like a financial success. I think the success of just having a team of people like working with and a group of customers that really like what we're doing. Yeah, I think that would be a really great outcome as well.
Love it. What do you have anything that you're working on, or what's next for you? Any new developments or anything like that?
So one thing that's a challenge for what we do is everything's custom, or about 90% of our sales are for private trips that are custom. And so what that means is we can't kind of have a stock of trips. So we can't just say, oh yeah, we have trips going every single day, because it doesn't make sense to book all those hotels, and hotels don't want you to fill up their calendar and cancel. And so what that's meant is you can't have this instantaneous sale, which is something people really want. Everything you read about product management is make it easy for them to buy, because 10 minutes from now, they probably won't buy. I have a salad spinner at home I see every single day. I bought a second salad spinner. We already had one. I have no idea why, but one Sunday, I got it in my head, I need to buy a new salad spinner. I bought it. It showed up the next day from Amazon. I thought, why the hell do I have 2 salad spinners? But it's like, that's this impetuousness that is really important in online sales. So we don't have that. It takes anywhere from 12 hours to probably 48 hours to confirm most trips. The team in country has to check, is there availability at the hotel or the huts? Can we get transfers? Can we get luggage moved around? Can we get bikes or tents? And so that just takes time. What we're working on now is with a few of our suppliers is they're going to have instantaneous bookings. So the ability to book a private trip instantaneously, I think, is revolutionary, because it allows you to get exactly what you want. And what's really cool is you can also alter your trip. So you can say, okay, I want to do the 14-day Camino, but I want to have 2 days at the start to explore. I also want a rest day in the middle. I want to add dinners these 3 nights, and I want to transfer at the end to the airport. And to allow you to kind of build that and see how the pricing changes in real time and then book it is super, super exciting for us. And we think that's it's something that's not available anywhere. And so it's kind of bringing this ease of booking that you kind of get on booking.com, but that's for a hotel or that's for a rental car. But here's your entire vacation from airport to airport. You can do it all, make the changes, see how the prices change, and then book it. I'm super stoked. It's not an easy project though. So we're just starting right now, changing how we manage our pricing database to get all that data in there. I just think that's going to revolutionize what we're doing.
No doubt. When do you expect that to launch?
We are on the very first stage. So I'm hopeful early 2025.
Awesome.
But there's a lot that can go wrong here. It seems like we've got a good plan, but with all these things, every good plan, we've not done a lot of this. So when you haven't done something, sometimes that 8-hour task becomes a 40-hour task, and
totally.
There's lots of those. So hopeful, and
Early 2025 seems pretty quick. Sounds pretty quick to me.
I like to get stuff done, and that's kind of, again, another one of my negatives and positives is let's go. And so sometimes I get a bit too optimistic, and I push dates like, oh, can we do this in 10 hours instead of 20? And okay, I guess, maybe we can try. And so sometimes I push for maybe more optimistic dates. So we'll see. I'm hopeful.
Love it. Richard, where can we send people to follow along?
So 10adventures.com or any of the social media channels at 10Adventures. The podcast is called the 10 Adventures Podcast, although we are going to rename it. When I started, I didn't think it would be successful, so I just, simple name. But according to Listen Notes, we're in the top 5% of podcasts globally. And our name kind of sucks. So we've been having all these meetings. What can we call it? It's actually really tough to rename a podcast, and there's a million travel podcasts. So at some point that name's going to change, but you can come on 10Adventures and find it. We've got a newsletter that goes out every week with little tidbits of what we've learned from podcast guests, sales on travel, and just interesting stuff. If people like the outdoors, want to learn more, or they just want to get into it, sign up for a newsletter and start learning.
Love it. We'll drop all the links, and I highly encourage anybody who's listening to go listen to your podcast as well. It's incredible. So, Richard, thank you so much for this conversation. It was super fun and to be outdoors and learn so much about what you do and how you do it.
Yeah, it was great. I really appreciate it. Yeah, isn't it nice? We're happy. We've been outside for an hour. Way better than being indoors.
That's it. Thank you.
Thank you.